RadioFree 102.3 KJLH. It's the Tammi Mac Show. And, you know, every now and again I have somebody come and sit in my seat. Well, today, honey, woo-hoo! I got a heater in my seat. Yes, I got heat in my seat. None other than John Legend.
How are you, Tammi?
Hey, John, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Well, you sound like really high-spirited today.
I feel good. I'm in a good mood, yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Well, then, since you're in a good mood, I want to ask you a burning question.
Okay.
A burning question that everybody's been dying to know the answer to. This question went viral, right?
Okay.
And not only are you credible enough to answer the question, but you're credible enough to be the answer to the question.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask John Legend,
wow.
Who, my friend, is the king of R&B?
You know what I said on Twitter? I said I feel like the crown is available right now. There's nobody that's like as dominant as we've seen other artists be in R&B. No male artist as dominant as we've seen in the past right now to be called the king. So I feel like the crown's available.
If the crown were passed on, who would be passing it on?
Well, I think we've seen over the last couple decades, I think credibly people could have claimed that R. Kelly was at a time. Usher was at a time. I think there was a time that Chris Brown could have been called the king. But I feel like nobody's winning at the level that they were winning at right now.
Right.
So I feel like it's available.
You think Stevie Wonder is the king, or what could be passing down the crown?
Stevie Wonder's been a king for a long time.
When we talked about who was the king of R&B, a lot of people was like, "You never said Stevie Wonder's name." But my thought about that, John,
my thing is who has it now? Who's doing current music now that is as dominant as people like Stevie or Marvin or Luther or Teddy or like I said, of the more recent artists, certain people were really on top of the world in R&B for a while. And I feel like there's really nobody, including myself, that we could say is doing that level of success as a male R&B artist. So I said the crown's available.
Including yourself.
I said the crown's available.
Wow. But this takes me to another question then. Do you believe that a part of that has to do with the way radio is today?
Absolutely. And I think radio has diminished the role of R&B, or you could argue the fans have diminished it because, the fans drive what radio plays to a large extent, even though it goes both ways.
Right.
So whatever the case, I think hip-hop, if you think about the black music landscape, hip-hop dominates more of that real estate now than it ever did. And whenever you're hearing a male sing on the radio nowadays, a lot of times it's a rapper singing through auto-tune rather than an actual...
Or it's an R&B song, an R&B singer singing on a rap song.
Yeah. So I think it's harder for... R&B to succeed just because there's less space for it to get played and there's less real estate available for it.
And that's unfortunate.
Yeah, and but it's on us to try to make music that is so compelling that you play ours instead of the rappers.
Okay, good luck with that, John. Good luck with that.
It's on us, so we gotta do. We got to make the most compelling music we can make.
So you have an unmistakable voice, and your fans love everything about your music. Would you go to a John Legend concert if you were not John Legend?
I mean, of course.
You would be a John Legend fan?
I think... I do think you have to love an artist to go see their show. You have to have listened to the records and be into it, because when you go to someone's show, it's like immersion into that artist's work. And if you don't care for that artist's work, then there's no point in going to the show. That's why I'm always weirded out when somebody reviews my shows, like press, when they review it from the perspective of somebody that really doesn't listen to me, or I'm like, it's not useful.
Right, you don't get to talk about it because it's not your type of hype.
If you're not into it, then of course you're not going to enjoy the show. You can't really convince somebody that doesn't really listen to an artist to enjoy their show, because you're about to get immersed in their repertoire, and you're not already into it, so you're probably not going to enjoy it like somebody who actually listens to it does.
Speaking of your repertoire, I'm going to go here with you.
Okay.
You kind of get pegged as having a whole bunch of slow, kind of depressing, I'm in a bad mood.
I do a lot of ballads, but most of them are happy ballads. Come on, give me that.
But I mean,
they're about love and commitment.
They are. That's true. But yes. I think.
But if you're single, they might depress you.
I think it's more of your melody and the way that you sing the music. Yeah. Would you agree with this kind of?
I think
melancholy in
my
a way?
biggest songs have been Ordinary People and All of Me. But I've also had success with Tonight and Green Light.
That is my favorite song, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't know if you care that's my favorite song.
That's my jam, too. And I play it at all my shows. And if you come see my shows, it's such a wide range of colors in the show, like musical colors. And even though I'm known for those two big piano ballads, there's so much more diversity to my repertoire than people give me credit for. But if you only know the singles, and the biggest singles have been ballads, then you think, well, John's is a ballad artist.
Right.
And that's the only thing he does. But if you go to my shows, it's such a wide range.
Now, I ask you, would you be a fan of John Legend if you weren't John Legend?
Of course I would.
Would Chrissy be a fan of John Legend if she weren't married to him?
She would, but I would say she likes... she likes the ladies more than she likes like male R&B. She likes Beyonce, Rihanna, Ariana Grande,
so
Mariah.
Would she be sitting front row at your concert?
She might be, but she'd be more likely to sit in front row at like those ladies that I just mentioned. She likes the kind of ladies that are like kind of R&B pop. Those are like her favorite artists.
Right. So speaking of Chrissy, how is the family? We love your Instagram. Just saw you mimicking a photo of your son.
Yeah.
He 9 months and you 482 months? It was hilarious. Whose idea was that?
Well, once we took the picture of Miles, we were joking that we should do it for me too, because everyone talks about how he's my mini-me. And we were like, let's do it. So I tried to get whatever outfit I had in my closet that looks similar to what he had in the picture. And I took the picture. I tried to like arrange my feet to like show the bottom of my soles of my shoes. It was complex because when you're 40, your body doesn't contort the way you want it to contort. But it was funny. We had fun with it.
I think we all would have enjoyed it more if it was like a birthday suit kind of picture. that would have been a little too much.
Well, that would have been what kind of birthday suit you talking about?
That would have got you. Well, not that you need any more followers.
I might have gotten blocked from. I might have gotten Instagram kicked off or something.
Also, in the chalkboard, we get to find out how many months he is, how many months you are, but we also find out his favorite song and your favorite song.
Yes.
And there was a remix going on to your son Miles' favorite song called Baby Shark. I want you to hear the remix.
Oh, no.
Tell me what you feel.
Somebody said they heard it in the club.
Tell me what you feel. They heard it in the club?
Yeah.
They played Baby Shark in the club?
Shark, do, 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 do. Baby Shark, do, 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 do. Baby Shark, do, 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 do. Baby Shark. Baby
That's kind of like an R&B feel, right?
Made it soulful.
It's very soulful. Do you sing Baby Shark to Miles?
I was playing it on the piano the other day. It was pretty funny.
I wish we had the keyboard. Usually we have the keyboards in here. I would have loved to got John Legend's rendition of Baby Shark.
Yeah, we play it.
So I wonder if people were dancing to the song in the club. You said
I heard somebody said they heard a remix at the club. I was like, what's going on, man? We go to the club to get away from these kids' songs.
The world is wild today. Up is down and down is up. You have 2 kids in the house now.
Yeah.
Other than your kids and your wife, what makes you feel like a kid again?
Oh, it makes me feel like a kid again. That's interesting. Other than my kids, because they do. Oh, my swimming lessons do.
Oh, you're taking swimming lessons?
Yeah, have you seen the videos?
Yes,
we posted the videos online, and I took like 1 or 2 lessons when I was a little kid, like 4 or 5 years old, and I hated it and didn't want to go back. And my parents didn't make me go back. I wish they would have, but I never really learned to swim. I never was afraid, as an adult or anything, to get in the water, but I never learned to swim again. So I had to take adult lessons. So I'm taking adult lessons now. My kids are taking lessons as toddler and infant, and I'm taking lessons as an adult. And turns out I learned and was inspired by my dad because my dad was in his 60s when he started taking lessons, and he's swimming well now.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So I ask you the question about what makes you feel like a kid again, because I thought I was going to get a different answer. What makes me feel like a kid again is going skating.
Oh.
I used to DJ at a skating rink in Houston all through high school, right? And so, needless to say, I watched
United Skates.
Your documentary, United Skates.
Yes.
And it was, I honestly don't think enough people really knew about it to watch it, and it really deals with the skate world, and I was so into it because I know all about the skate world, being raised in the skating rink.
It's a serious subculture, and I think a lot of people that were in it know about it very well. But a lot of people that aren't in it weren't aware that this whole scene was going on and how influential it's been in the Black community with hip hop, with just having a place where people can have a good time and feel safe. It's been such an important part of a lot of our communities, and part of the documentary is celebrating that, celebrating the history of it, but also saying, a lot of these places are disappearing because, zoning and all these other reasons that this real estate is becoming contested space, and a lot of these venues are disappearing. So the documentary is great because it celebrates the culture, but also says, it'd be great if we would do something about saving it.
I want to let our listeners hear the trailer, a little bit of the trailer, if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm. It's a world in its own. You don't know what to expect. You hear the bass, you step out on the floor and just let it go. As you go across the country, you'll find it's a really thriving rink. It's because they have a really strong African-American skate community.
It was a place where the streets, everybody met up.
Everything was underground at some point in time.
You don't understand the culture, you push it away.
The owner told us that they're not going to renew our lease.
This is the pattern. Our skate community is suffering.
What are we going to do now? Where are we going to go?
Black folks, they think you get a lot of them together, it's going to be trouble.
Sheriff's already out here, and they harassed us the whole time we were there.
We got to keep fighting.
What's interesting is Felicia, who was in the documentary, is from Los Angeles, and she's one of our listeners. And so
we love Felicia.
Man, Felicia really she played a huge part in this documentary.
Absolutely. You follow her with her family and how important it is for them as a bonding activity and as just a release emotionally for them. And then you see the challenges that are put up in their faces when certain nights where they're not welcome, where we're not welcome, where people that look like us aren't welcome, and the kind of excuses that they would give us. Like,
your wheels are too small.
Yeah, exactly. And you just see it's another place, just like swimming pools and real estate discrimination, where you see where when Black people try to enter certain spaces, they're not welcome.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about skating is that when how we are, we find creative ways
we put something on it.
Yeah, to survive and thrive. Yeah, so we survive and thrive even in situations where people try to exclude us. So we would have our own nights at a lot of these places, and from that develop the styles and the subcultures that we see in the film. So in some ways, the silver lining of us being discriminated against was us having a place where we were developing our own thing and our own spin on this culture. So it's really interesting to watch a documentary and see that.
And you also see World on Wheels closed down here in Los Angeles. Skateland closed down here in Los Angeles. And you find out, and if you're born and raised in LA, you know that World on Wheels was a place where the Crips and the Bloods came as a truce. That was the one place you can go, and it didn't matter what set you were with.
Yes, it was a safe place.
It was a safe place. So.
It was a safe place, and it was an important place to gather. And as we talk about in the film, a lot of the first performances for a lot of rappers when they came to the West Coast, like Queen Latifah and others, was at World on Wheels and some of these other skating rinks.
Yeah, back home in Houston, where I'm from, NWA came to our skating rink. Scarface, the Ghetto Boys used to perform at our skating rinks. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You have become, because we're speaking of the zoning and how we're losing a lot of what belongs to us or things that we've creating because of zoning. That has a lot to do. And even when I watched the documentary, John, this was the first time something clicked in me.
Yeah.
When I saw the people in the documentary go to the courts to try to save the skating rinks. And I thought, we're too much of a reactionary people and we have to be more proactive because the zoning begins with voting.
Absolutely. We have got to get involved all throughout, especially in local elections because so much is decided at local elections, and you might not think it's like a big deal because we focus on who's the president, who's our senator, who's our governor, but we got to pay attention to who's on the school board. We got to pay attention to, on the zoning board. All these folks have power, and they have the power that we give them because whoever's voting is voting for them. Yeah. So they're spending our tax dollars. They're deciding how our communities are governed. And we need to pay attention. I know it's difficult to pay attention to everything because there's so many positions, but to the extent that you can, just read up before you vote and vote down ballot and make sure people that represent your point of view. So you agree with
voting down ballot?
Absolutely. Okay. You got to vote down ballot. You have to look at all these positions and say, who's the best person for each one?
Okay. So speaking of voting, March 7th marks the anniversary of Bloody Sunday.
Yes, in Selma.
Yes, in Selma. And they did the march. They marched this past Sunday.
Yes.
There were a lot of Democrats who marched. Hillary Clinton was there. Yes. Jesse Jackson was there. Were you there?
I wasn't there this time. I was there previously. We did it around the release of the film Selma, for which I wrote the song Glory. And I've done that before and spent time with John Lewis and other people who were actually there. And it's a powerful place, and it makes you remember it and makes you grateful for those who sacrifice their well-being and some of them their lives so that we all could vote, and it makes you realize we can't waste it.
Wow. Yeah. So I would suggest, I did radio in Birmingham, Alabama, so I'm very familiar with all that went on in Selma, Montgomery, Birmingham.
Yes.
And so I would suggest, like, if you're a parent, instead of going to like a theme park, maybe take your kids to, there are two things that I think you should definitely do or take your kids to do. The Memphis Civil Rights Museum is incredible. And the Edmund Pettus Bridge.
Yes.
To show them.
And there's another new monument in Alabama is the monument to all the victims of lynching. My friend Brian Stevenson just created this beautiful monument that you see every single victim of lynching. Their names are preserved in a space together in Alabama. And he did this because we feel like too many Americans forget this terrible legacy that we have. And you see it, in really graphic detail how awful it was and how pervasive it was, particularly in the South. And we have to remember these things and make sure we don't return to those days.
Yeah, that's... Look, you have been quite the activist and unapologetic for it. You spoke out on surviving R. Kelly. You said that it shouldn't be celebrated to do the right thing. You created a Grammy Award-winning song with Common for the theme song to Selma. Your involvement in prison reform. You are also a part of President Obama's My Brother's Keeper. How is that going? What is that? Is it still moving forward?
Yeah, it's a part of his foundation. So his foundation, the Obama Foundation, does a lot of things. They do some things domestically here in the United States, and they do things with girls, with boys, all kinds of folks. But this particular effort was in response to when Trayvon Martin was killed by George Zimmerman. And the president, at the time he said, if I had a son, he would probably look a lot like Trayvon. And he formed this initiative to really focus on the issues that young men of color face in this country. There's so much challenge put in front of young men of color. And he wanted to provide an opportunity to support them in any way that he could, through mentoring, through funding programs that are proving that they are successful in working with young people. And so we gathered in Oakland a couple weeks ago, right around President's Day, to celebrate the work that they've been doing over the last 5 years. And they've really seen a lot of success and a lot of lives impacted by it.
And what is your part within that?
My part is just to support, help raise money, and lift up the work that they're doing. But mainly the work is using the money that we raise, supporting organizations that are already out there doing the work in communities. And so it's uplifting these organizations and funding these organizations and supporting them in any way that we can.
Well, I think we can actually say that you practice what you preach.
Yes.
So let us move on to why you're really here, John.
Well, I'm here to talk to you about it. But we also have a song to promote. It's called Preach.
Preach being the title of your new single as well. It's actually a movement that provides awareness and financial assistance to some of the more notable cases in America and some that are not as noticeable.
Yes.
And it's making history in its own right because it's the first time that YouTube is going to put a donate button underneath their video, which is crazy.
We've never had a donate button for any YouTube video before. And we decided we want to give people an opportunity to practice what they preach. To, if you care about something and you say you care about something, get involved in some way or another. Whether you can donate or volunteer or whatever it is, get involved and put your actions behind your words. So that's what we've embarked on with them. If you go to johnlegend.com/can'tjustpreach, we show you the work that we're highlighting of activists around the country. All of them have responded to tragedies in their lives by doing something, not just talking about it, but doing something. And one of them is Trayvon Martin's mother, Sabrina Fulton. We have also worked with folks around the country who are responding to the immigration crisis and parents being separated from their families at the border, folks that are survivors from Parkland, and highlighting gun violence as an issue. So we're trying to say, you know, we all get frustrated by watching the news. We all know that something needs to change, but let's actually go about being part of that change by getting involved.
I have to admit, you talk about, when you talk about Preach, you say that this whole movement is about how the media kind of bombards us and desensitizes us to what's going on. So I have to admit, I have come quite desensitized
it's hard.
from everything that it is. And sometimes I just click to the other channel and I'm like, I can't do this anymore.
Exactly.
It's stressful, John.
Even in the video we show like the news being basically a nightmare because it's so hard to watch sometimes. And we do get desensitized. I think at this point in America, we've gotten so used to these gun massacres at these schools and bars and all these things that now it's like, it's a good day when only 4 people got killed rather than in the teens or in the 20s. And it's crazy that we've become inured to that kind of daily barrage of violence that we're just used to it.
Cops kill black men.
So now, so we get these videos out where the cops are, strangling our men, shooting our men, and lying about it until the video comes out and proves that they were lying about it. And then we're used to that too. And all of these things we talk about in the video, I understand the temptation to be desensitized to this stuff or to just turn it off and say, I don't want to deal with this again today, because you got to have some self-care sometimes and just, focus on the positive.
Right.
But at some point, if we want change to happen, we got to do something.
I also have to admit, I could only watch the video one time.
Yeah, it's tough for some people. I get it.
Oh, man.
I get it. It's heavy.
I'm crying. I'm about to cry now just thinking about
it's heavy.
it. For those of you who haven't seen the video to Preach, man, you just said everything that it encompasses, but you deal with the school shootings in the video. You deal with children being taken away from their parents by Border Patrol, and you also deal with black men being shot by police. This is what I really want to touch on about that video. Because the name of the song is Preach.
Yeah.
You, John Legend, go to a church and you sit down and pray or kneel and pray. And then at the end, when the group of protesters are facing the police, it seems to me like you've put on like a preacher's robe.
So what that was inspired by was something that happened here in Los Angeles. So last year, just as we were coming up with the treatment for the video and deciding what we were going to do, we were in the height of the crisis at the border where so many parents were getting separated from their families. It was in the news a lot. A lot of people were protesting. And a group of protesters was all clergymen and women. And they got arrested by the police for protesting on behalf of those families that were being separated. And so my idea was, let's dramatize that in the video where a group of ministers across faiths get together and say, we're going to get from behind the pulpit, go out in the streets and protest on behalf of these issues that we care about. And we had them get arrested because that's literally what happened in real life in LA when they protested against the family separation policy.
No.
I do know who inspires me, and I've seen, I've seen Reverend William Barber, for instance, who's based out in North Carolina. And he started a poor people's movement out there. And he had a thing called Moral Mondays where they would go and protest every Monday at the State House in North Carolina. And he's a pastor, and his whole mission is to say, if we're going to say we're Christians and say we're Christ-like, then we need to stand up for justice. We need to stand up for poor people, people who are overlooked. And he was really one of the inspirations behind us doing the song and doing the video. We've been, he even wrote a sermon based off the song that we circulated right around Martin Luther King Day.
I don't think I saw the sermon.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll have to pull that
Check
up.
it out. Check out his Twitter, and I follow him on Twitter.
What's his Twitter?
I forget, but it's Reverend William Barber is his name.
So we'll find it.
And he's one of the people that I look to as a leader in this area, where he really takes his Christianity to heart, and he says, if we're going to be truly Christ-like, we have to care about the poor. We have to care about those who are overlooked and downtrodden in society, and fight for them.
What connected you with a pastor in North Carolina? And the reason
I've seen him on the news.
Okay, because the reason I ask is because there are huge mega pastors out here that have a huge spotlight.
Yeah.
And it seems to me they ain't doing what William Barber.
Well, I think a lot of them, I don't want to, I'm not the one to critique ministers, but I think a lot of them are focused on prosperity ministry and telling everybody that God wants them to be rich. And I think that message only can go so far, because there's so many systemic issues in our community that are the reasons why people haven't had wealth over the years. And if you're not speaking out about those issues, you're not getting to the root of the problem.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So I'm gonna stop being so deep because
I didn't come to critique preachers today, but
you are John Legend.
The truth is,
people expect to be deep when you're John Legend. You expect to be deep. So all the listeners were like, "Oh, Tammi Mac, ask him about his position on us." Like, oh, can I have fun with John Legend?
Let's have fun.
I wanna have fun. Okay, so here we go. Check this out, John Legend. You have now become we know you for your musical greatness.
Of course.
But now you have moved on to a different plateau, my brother. Not only are you producing documentaries and films and television shows, you're acting it as well.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ Superstar.
Yes.
Okay. How was that experience?
That was incredible. I loved it. I really loved it. I've never done anything like that before. I'd been in musicals when I was in high school, but I was never the star because I was less of an actor and more just of a singer back then. But when NBC reached out to me and said, we want you to be Jesus and Jesus Christ Superstar, I couldn't turn it down. It was such a great opportunity and so interesting of a challenge for me, something I hadn't really done before. So I was like, let's try it. And it worked. It was a lot of fun.
Was it a lot of work? Was it more work than the other, than the musical side of John Legend?
Well, the difference between that and what I do normally is I'm writing my own songs normally. So by the time it's time to perform them live, it's not like I'm trying to learn a bunch of new material.
Right.
I've written the material and it's been in me for a long time. So it's easier for me to be myself performing my own songs than it is to take on an entire production that I hadn't learned before and learn all of it. Try to, really portray the character in a way that's true to the material. Work in such a large group with so many different actors and production people and stage hands and all these other things, choreographers. It's just a lot more to it than any given concert that I've done. So it was a lot of preparation, a lot of work, a lot of challenge, but I think that makes it even more fun when it works because you're like, all this work we put in, and it's so rewarding when it comes together.
Yeah. So we have a small little thing in common, just very little, very, very little, nothing big, nothing major. You're on your acting journey, but I am an actress.
Okay.
And Anthony Hemingway gave me a role in a television show that you produced on A&E called Infamous.
Yes.
And so, of course, Infamous never got picked up.
It didn't get picked up. That's how the TV game works.
They come, they go.
That's how it works.
So you're this big time writer, and I'm this small time actress. I figure we will play a game called the actor versus the writer.
Oh wow! All
right. Do you mind?
This sounds like an innovative game.
Yes, it is. So here's how we play this game: the actor versus the writer. John Legend, I'm sure because you are one of the best writers musically, you are very familiar with others that have written fantastic songs.
Oh, okay.
So sure. I am going to act out
a
couple of songs, and you tell me what song that is.
Okay.
All right, let's go. Baby, just suppose I should happen to cross your mind, and by some chance, someone like you I've really been trying to find. Well, I mean, let me tell you, think of how exciting it would be if you should discover you feel like me. If you should discover this dream is for two.
Because all I do is think about you.
There it is, Stevie Wonder.
That was a good acting job. I liked it.
Okay. Let's try that.
That's a classic.
Classic, right?
Mm-hmm.
When he tells you ain't nothing, don't believe him. And if he can't learn to love you, you should leave him. Because, sister, you don't need him. And I ain't trying to gas you up. See, I just call him how I see him. You know what makes me unhappy? When brothers make babies and leave a mother to be a pappy. And since we all came from a woman, got our game from a woman.
Tupac.
You got it. Keep your head up.
And if you can't learn to love you, you should leave them. Cause sister, you don't need. And I ain't trying to gas you up. I just call them how I see.
Keeping your head up.
Makes me unask that. When brothers make me.
So how's your relationship with Kanye?
It's good, yeah. We see each other periodically, and our families are friends, so we all get together sometimes.
Help us reconcile this, John Legend, because I have a neighbor. My next door neighbor is a white man named Torben. Hey, Torben. He don't listen.
Okay.
But he is a Trump supporter. And so I know that there are people, I also have a couple of friends who are black, who are Trump supporters. Very close friends.
Yeah.
And so how do we reconcile our friendships when our differences are so far apart? And that's kind of, when we see you and we see Kanye, that's kind of what we see. So if we're going through that in our own lives, how do we reconcile that? Help us.
Well, you have to decide, if you love someone and you've been friends with them for a really long time, you have to decide whether or not your friendship can survive the fact that you have really different views on the world. And not all friendships can survive it, honestly. It depends on the strength of the friendship and the history of the friendship. And it depends on a lot of things. But my thing was, I never really talked about politics with Kanye anyway. We talked about music most of the time. We talked about movies and art and more creative things.
So are you saying you never knew what his stance was?
No, it's not that. It's just I never looked to him for that political
engagement.
Okay. Like, it was never a thing that we talked about. And so when he started kind of coming out on the Trump stuff, it kind of was like disconcerting because I know how, how influential he is as a person and how many people pay attention to what he says. And I wanted him to think about, the fact that as much as you might like someone's personality or you might be, thrilled by their underdog story or their marketing skill or whatever, however they got over on America. As much as you may be thrilled by that, and I think he sees a lot of himself in that, in that kind of story. You have to also think about what the policies that person is trumpeting, right? What those things do to people, Yeah. And so when I think about Trump, I think about the first day he came down. Well, first of all, he started his political career, one by denigrating the Central Park Five, falsely accusing them. They were all exonerated, but he put out a newspaper ad asking for the death penalty for them before they were even found guilty.
Yes, he did.
And they were found guilty and then exonerated. So 1. 2, he's been in federal court for discriminating against black people. He wouldn't rent to them in his buildings. 3, he became a Republican basically by trumpeting the racist lie that the president wasn't born in America, that he was born in Kenya. And then when he announced his presidency, he comes down the escalator and says Mexicans are rapists and murderers. So that's a stone cold racist to me. And it's like,
that's heavy.
It's not even like debatable whether or not he's a racist. I don't care how many black friends he has. You can trot him out, but the proof is in what he says and what he does. And then not only does he say these things, but then he says, I'm going to change immigration policy so that people from certain countries, read all the black and brown countries, can't come in and we get more people from Europe. That's another thing. Then the callousness with which he's treated the families who are coming here seeking asylum and seeking refuge, the fact that he would kidnap their kids and separate them from their families, it's just evil.
It is.
It really is evil. And so as much as you might like someone's personality or think, isn't it crazy this guy got elected and blah, blah, blah. Right. Like, you have to understand that their policies matter and they have effects on real live people. And I just could never come out in support of the kind of person that Trump is. And so obviously Kanye and I had that conversation on text, and a lot of people saw it because he posted it. And we just will never agree on this stuff. And I don't know if he's still on that because I feel like he's, come out and kind of renounce some of his views, but I just don't talk about it with him right now. I don't feel like I want to engage in that conversation and try to convince him anymore.
But the family's all good.
We can hang out and, talk about everything else but that.
So I think I'm getting the boot here for you. So let me wrap up with this really quick. So this game is called I Don't Have to Explain Myself. I'm grown.
Okay, I like that.
All right. So I'm just going to toss out some stuff. You answer multiple choice.
Okay.
White bread or wheat?
Oh, wheat.
Hillary or Kamala?
Oh, I feel like I don't have to choose but Kamala now.
Okay.
She's about to run. She's running.
Bernie or Biden?
I would go with Bernie over Biden.
Okay. Bernie, Kamala.
I don't know yet. I have to see how it all plays out.
Jury's still out on that one?
I really want to see the campaign and see how it plays out. I want to see how people are when they're, under fire a little bit. Mm. And Kamala, she's run in California, but she hasn't really had a tough election yet that I've seen. So I would like to see her, in a crowded field, how she distinguishes herself. But I really like her. She's a friend of ours. She's a friend of our families. We've supported her for Senate. And so we're already favorably inclined toward Kamala. But there's a lot of people in the race that I like a lot, and I think their policies are great. But I want to see how they perform under pressure, because I think this campaign will put pressure on you.
Oh, yeah.
And if you survive all that, then you might be ready to go against Trump and run for president on the big stage.
Michael or Prince?
Prince. Don't ask me that today.
Okay.
After last night. Okay. Don't ask me that today.
Okay.
Any other day, it might be more controversial.
Okay, this is a yes or no. Mute Michael.
You know what? I think everybody's got to decide for themselves. I think if you watch the documentary, it's going to be hard because it's going to be hard to separate some of those graphic and horrific details from the music. But obviously the music has been so important to all of us and it's been so special to all of us and so meaningful in so many ways. I think it'll be hard for people to divorce it from, what they're hearing about him and his character and his personal behavior. I think it's going to be hard, but everybody's got to decide, for themselves. You choose, whether or not you push play or whether or not you can enjoy it and listen to it guilt-free.
Yeah, that's
it's
going to be a tough one.
It's going to be tough for a lot of people because if you watch the documentary, it's some tough stuff in there.
Okay, Stevie or Prince?
Stevie's got home field advantage, but
yeah,
truthfully, I listen to Stevie more than just about any other artist in my life, and he's probably, in my mind, the greatest solo artist of all time in any genre.
So Back That Ass Up comes on.
Yeah.
You dancing or not?
Well, if I'm in the right mood, yeah. Why not?
Okay, I'm just trying to see what your musical taste like.
I'm saying I don't like play it in the house, but if I'm at the club, which is rare now, I'm 40 and I got 2 kids, but
it's not on your playlist.
It's not on the playlist.
Okay. And finally, you have an EGOT, only one.
But I got one thing to say. Okay. Did you see my slow motion lip sync?
No, I did not.
On lip sync battle?
Speaking. I saw, I do watch lip sync battle. I did not see
that was in the first season.
I saw you put your wig on though.
Oh yeah, that was for Andre. That was another season. But the first season, I was one of the early competitors. It was me versus Common, and I did slow motion for me.
Slow motion for me. I like it when you're doing slow motion for me. I'm a Southern girl, so I love all that Southern stuff. You have an EGOT. Only one can stay. The Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, or Tony.
I would say Grammy for Best New Artist was at the beginning of my career, very important. The close second would be the Oscar for Glory.
Yes. All right. So you had a Christmas special.
Yes.
That was exciting.
That was fun.
And you had a Christmas album, too.
Yeah, I had a Christmas album, Legendary Christmas.
The video was so fun. Which song was it? With the cartoon video.
Yes, we did that one for Bring Me Love.
Yeah, it put me back in the place of, what is...
It was like the Bewitched and the I Dream a Genie.
Yeah. That was so fun. Yeah. So how was it to do a whole Christmas special? And I
loved it. We had, we had your boss on the show. We had Stevie on the album too. And we just got to have fun. I love Christmas music. I grew up on it. I grew up on those Motown Christmas albums. And I grew up on Nat King Cole. And my family, when we gather every year for Christmas, it's a concert. We sing. It's a talent show. The kids dance, sing, do everything. It's all about the music.
Chrissy was pregnant on that show, right?
No, Miles had just been born a few months before that.
Oh, okay.
But we had a great time.
Any more babies coming?
Oh, sure. I hope so. I think we'll have one more at least.
Right now?
No.
No, she's not now. Okay.
I would like a little break.
Exclusive up in here. That's all.
I would like a little break. I think Chrissy would too. Her body has to go through all the changes for it, and I think we both like a little break.
I had some listener questions, but I think we have to let him go. We have to let him go now. Okay, so we have to let you go.
Thank you. This was fun.
Before I let you go, I can't let you go without talking about NBC's The Voice.
Okay.
You're judging on The Voice.
I am a new coach on The Voice. Yes. I joined Adam Levine, Kelly Clarkson, and Blake Shelton. And we're having a good time, even though they blocked me 3 times. I set a record. The most blocked coach of all time. And it's clear that they fear me. They're threatened by me. But I still think my team's forming up to be very formidable. And we've got a really good shot.
All right. I think John Legend always has a shot. Thank you.
Don't count me out.
Don't count this brother out. Thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you.
In our communities and your social, handling our social issues and just being a representative and a beacon for not just African Americans, John Legend, but for America. We really appreciate you for that.
Thank you.
Not just your musical talents. And thank you for being on the Tammi Mac Show on Radio Free 102.3.
Thank you so much, Tammi. I had such a great time with you.